All right, joining me now, General Jack Keane, retired four-star general and Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, as always, sir, thank you very much. Could you give us your brief reading of the military situation in Ukraine?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say I totally agree with everything you just said in the monologue.
Thank you,
We do have the capacity to stop these guys economically and financially, and the pathway to that is exactly what you said, the central bank and also their oil and gas, period. And I hopefully will get about the completeness of it. But yes, the overall situation is that for the last couple of days on the axis leading to Kyiv, there's been an operational pause for very good reason, not just because of the resistance that the Ukrainians are providing, which is steadfast and courageous, but also because they have to resupply, and they've also brought in reinforcements. These are units that were already in Belarus, and they're now on that route. But the Ukraine military is taking them out with anti-tank weapons. They're ambushing them, and they're using drones to take out some of the vehicles as well. And that's why they have been 19 to 20 miles outside of Kyiv for over 3 days. Even with this new convoy coming down the road, they're suffering the same fate that their predecessors did as well. So that is a problem for them, and that is good. Look, at the Russian military and their performance here has been somewhat a surprise to many of us. Certainly they miscalculated in terms of the Ukrainians, but they also overreached in terms of the scale of the military problem they have. The campaign is too complicated, it's too ambitious. And I think those senior guys that are around Putin that wear uniforms, I think they likely told him, Larry, that, look, we can do this, Mr. President. We'll get this done in 48 hours, 72 at the best. We'll put in power, the Ukrainian pro-Russian that you've selected, and we'll be able to get out of here in relatively short order. What profound incompetence that is, if that is what they did, because they just don't have a grip on this thing to the degree that they really should, Larry.
Is Putin's inner circle getting antsy to the point of even rebelling? I mean, one hears rumors, General Keane. You know a whole lot more about that than I do, but you hear a lot of rumors. He's been short-tempered with this guy and that guy, and he took somebody off of the social media. I mean, is there any dissent inside because this thing's not going as they thought it would?
Oh, there's got to be. It may not be reaching public sources, but, when anything goes bad, you've seen it yourself in government service. When something goes so fundamentally wrong, people are looking around to point the finger at somebody. And there's a lot of that going on. And certainly there's likely some questioning of Putin's judgment here as well by people, who are serving him. He likely is closer to his security services. Those are the people, the largest group of people he has around him that protect him and also provide him intelligence, as opposed to his foreign policy and military advisors. But nonetheless, there's got to be some real dissension going on and questioning his judgment, and certainly his losing confidence in some of the military leaders that have been advising him that this is a plan that's going to work in a couple of days. And now Putin is on a world stage being humiliated and embarrassed in a way that he never has been in the 22 years he's been serving as the head of Russia.
Putin has become the biggest demonic, evil person on the world stage. He has no support from anybody. Even his pals in China are edging away from him. Even progressives on the left in the United States now are moving away from him. And Zelensky has become a hero because of his steadfastness, his courage. He's there on the ground giving interviews and so forth. He ain't leaving. I mean, this is a big turn of events for Putin. And where I'm going with this, General Keane, is that why Putin all of a sudden is bringing up a nuclear deterrent, nuclear emergency, nuclear anything, which is about the scariest thing possible?
Yeah, I mean, you put your finger right on it. We don't have a nuclear crisis. What we have here is Putin using nuclear rhetoric to gain leverage. He wants to push back on the sanctions, and I completely think he wants to push back on all the resupply that is going into the Ukrainian military now, led by the United States, but there's 16 other countries involved in that resupply. That's what's got them. As best I can tell from sources that I have, there's been no change in the nuclear status of Putin's arsenal.
Right.
And so this is not a nuclear crisis. If we're in a nuclear crisis, then we would know that, and the United States would be talking to the American people about it. And what we need to do from the Biden administration is be steady here, be firm. This is unacceptable rhetoric, unacceptable behavior to wave a nuclear bombardment or nuclear threat in the face of the world out there. Hold them accountable for that, but be steady and firm and don't overreact. And so far, this administration is holding its own with this.
Just last one, General Keane. Just have a few moments left, but all of Putin's nonsense narrative, malarkey, how Ukraine belongs to Russia and so forth and so on. Back in 1994, there was something called the Budapest Memorandum. You know all about that. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in turn for a pledge by Russia, the United States, and Great Britain. And I'll just read this verbatim. To refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of Ukraine. That was the Budapest memo. Putin signed that darn thing, and yet he continues this false narrative, false flag nonsense that somehow the Ukraine belongs to Russia. He supposedly guaranteed their sovereignty.
Oh, yeah, well, it's just another one of his hypocritical statements. He's designed this whole affair in terms of his own image. I think this Ukrainian thing is so personal for him. He's got such deep feelings and passion about it. He identifies himself with the state of Russia. And Ukraine is a part of that, and he wants to. This is about his legacy, and I think when you get involved with that degree of emotion and that degree of passion as a head of state, you're prone to make judgmental errors, and he has made serious ones here.
All right, General Keane, thank you, sir, as always, and probably hope to see you tomorrow evening. We appreciate everything.